So we'll now come to our Samutpada. Today we are starting with that. So I think we have come to the place for which we had studied Patthana finally. Just like I'll just open and see. I think it was 300 something. $108. So we come to the 108th slide where we talk about Paticca Samutpada. As you recall, to understand that was the main purpose of our study of Patthana. And it is said that Paticca Samutpada and Abhidhamma were contemplated by the Buddha in the fourth week, I think, of his fourth week after the enlightenment, in that place which is now called Ratnaghara. I hope Arpan remembers it. We spent 2 hours there meditating.
In Bodh Gaya?
In Bodh Gaya. So I think we are all familiar with Paticca Samutpada. I have put it in the next slide. Avidya Paccaya Sankhara, Sankhara Paccaya Vijnanam, Vijnana Paccaya Namarupa, Namarupa Paccaya Salayatan, Salayatan Paccaya Phassa, Phassa Paccaya Vedana, Vedana Paccaya Tanha, Tanha Paccaya Upadan, Upadan Paccaya Bhava, Bhava Paccaya Jati, Jati Paccaya Jara Marana Sukha Parade Dukkha Domanasya Upayasa Bhavanti Samutayo Hoti. I think this one has missed out Phassa in this.
Phassa, which means
missed out.
It
has missed out that. I just took it from a net, so that is missed out. So this is the 12 links, and it is normally shown in the form of a cycle, because when we have Jara Marana Shoka Paradev, that actually increases the avidya. When at the end of, when as we get old and we cry, or when we are ill and we cry, or when we are about to die then we cry and lament, that only increases our ignorance further, and the cycle keeps on going again and again. So it's not that ignorance is external to the cycle, it also has its own causes. So that's how the cycle goes on and on.
But this is very interesting that in our tradition we let people live the life of ignorance, and we say that you should, वो जो हमारा वैराग्य होता है वो last ashram है.
That is the kind of
but till then the ignorance has completely set in.
Set in so much that for the last phase it will be quite tough to get over it. Usually this Paticca Samutpada is discussed in varieties of ways. So if you see the next slide, I have put down Paticca Samutpada standard model. Now, there are many ways it is understood. The standard model is the one given by Buddha Ghosha in Visuddhimagga, where he explains it in 3 lives patterns. And it is generally, this is the one generally accepted in Orthodox Theravada tradition. But there are some unorthodox people also who interpreted that it is actually every moment that Paticca Samutpada is happening, and we should see it in that sense.
This includes
Jan Buddha Dasa and others.
Every moment we are dying and every moment we are...
both the things, that is true, but this explanation has value from 3 life point of view also. It's not that that is unnecessarily contrived, because there are suttas in which Buddha does mention about the rebirth linking from death, how does one get the next life, and similar connotations are used. So it is Buddha does not directly mention it in this form, but by inference people have derived. There are also suttas where Buddha talks about, especially if you remember Upanishad Sutta, where he talks of transcendental dependent origination. There, it gives the implication that it is happening every moment. So we have to see it in both this sense. So I'll first will present the Paticca Samutpada as a standard model and also make comments about the general validity of the every moment happening. But we need not reject it because it is equally valid.
It's a by 3 life, because if it is just a matter of emphasizing the rebirth, 2 lives are sufficient.
It also talks of the future life. Starting in what is happening in the past, it has a value from the point of view of Patthana also, because it mentions that what is happening today has both past causes and present causes. And what we do today, present efforts, will become future effects. So present results are a result of past cause, and present cause results in future results. So that's how this diagram I have shown. If you see, I've indicated where the cuts are there in this diagram. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I have shown those branches.
Present cause, future result.
So this portion, first 2 links are past cause. The next 6 links, 5 links are essentially present result of that up to the feeling. And then from feeling is the present cause, because depending on how you respond to feeling will be the present cause, and that will up to the becoming, and then that will produce the future result. And ignorance, of course, as is shown in this diagram, it is summing up from various causes. And this diagram I have taken from a good book, Venerable Payutto. He is a Thai monk and very well respected as the biggest scholar in Thailand. So it is from his book that this diagram I have taken. So what does it mean?
So Silesh has this question that if what happens today has past cause
Also.
then is future predetermined?
Not predetermined. It's not, because present causes are also there. At the present we have results and present we have causes. So it will become clear when we go through it one by one. I'll first do a quick review and then go through them one by one, because quick review we are all familiar. We have listened to Goenkaji so many times, and so we are all familiar. So what does it say? Avidya Pachya Sankhara. What does it mean? That ignorance as the past causes volitional impulses, volitional formation. Sankhara in this sense is used as a chetana or kamma. So whenever we have, now this happens even now, at this moment also it is happening, that sankharas are causing volitional impulses. They are causing kamma. And volitional impulses cause avidya pachya sankhara, sankhara pachya vijnanam. So they give rise to consciousness. This happens every moment and also at the time of death. That is the point being. That's why it is being said in that manner. So the division between past cause and present result is actually indicating past death and present birth. So the present consciousness which entered into the womb of mother is the result of the kammas which arose just before death. That is what is being said. Then the kammas which arose just before death, they gave rise to the next consciousness, and that consciousness entered in the womb, and that's how I was born. So that rebirth linking consciousness, which you call Patisandhi Chitta, which you already I think discussed, has the imprint of all the past stored impressions of the Chitta which arose at just before the past death. So that is the relinking consciousness.
डेथ से पहले जो आएगा चित्त जो होगा उसमें उसके पहले की भी सब आएंगे.
सारी चीजें आएंगे, हाँ बिल्कुल.
जो
It is not that only the एक क्षण पहले जो करेगा उससे ही सब कुछ हो जाएगा, ऐसा नहीं. That जो हम एक क्षण पहले करेंगे वो it will be dependent upon what we have done throughout the life. सारा जीवन अगर हम बेईमानी करते रहे तो उस समय ईमानदारी का ख्याल नहीं आने वाला है ना। सारा जीवन अगर हम लिप्त रहेंगे संसार में तो उस समय भी वही लिप्तता का ही ख्याल आएगा. So, but many a times it is, for example, said that there no karma may arise at the time of immediately before death because the person may be in coma or some such thing. You know, that immediately strong determined, because the karma which gives rise to birth should be quite strong. So in that case, any of the past karmas can arise. That we'll see depending on what is, if you remember, the decisive support condition, which produces effect even across lives. So there is in fact a sutta also, I remember, where one Sakyan by the name Mahanama goes to Buddha and says that everybody tells me that the karma, just the thought which arises just before death will determine future. So what will happen to all these punyas which I have done? Sare bekar ho gaye kya? Us samay I don't know what thought will arise just when I am dying. He says, no, don't worry, it doesn't happen like that. The cumulative karma which you have accumulated is the prominent determinant in what's going to happen. So don't worry. Don't worry that what happens exactly moment of death and then what will I do.
So does it mean the non-prominent will wash away?
No. They'll all carry forward.
Will all carry on.
They'll all carry on.
But if this is dependent on the last,
which may arise at that time. Now, which will arise is totally unpredictable.
सबको साथ लेके चलेगा.
लेकिन यहाँ sum total तो है ही ना, तो sum total
See,
नहीं जाने वाला.
we have studied ना वो अनंतर पच्चय हो. एक चित्त खत्म होता है, दूसरा जागता है, और उसमें क्या जितने इसके गुणधर्म है वो सारे उसमें चले जाते हैं. Prominent गुणधर्म. Those which are light sankharas, they fall away. But the prominent ones keep on going and keep on moving from one chitta to another according to some anantara pacchaya. Keep on transmitting. But something funny also happens. Past things may also get the example which you remember we had discussed, that a seed was put in the soil today and it gives fruit after 10 years. So similarly, an impression which is put in the mind sometime, when it will fructify, nobody knows. So it can fructify at the time of death. आपने कोई बहुत ही गलत काम किया, वो डेथ के टाइम पे पैदा होगा.
That seed is also there in the consciousness that may arise in the next
life also. For example, at the case, उसकी stark example is the life of the death of Mahamoggallana. He had done in some past life, he had conspired with his wife and killed his parents, given poison to his parents, and that karma was so prominent that even though he had become an arhat, that the fruit of that arose just at that time, and he had become fully enlightened. Then the fruit arose, and as a result, the death was very violent, as we all know. His death was very violent. But being an arhat, they could see the reason and just firstly try to avoid dying in that manner, so that the people who were killing him, they should not get into trouble. See the volition. He realized that this is the fructification of my karma, but he also realized that these people who are killing me, they'll be in deep trouble because they're killing an arhat. So he made himself again out of the pieces and became alive again, and fine after a number of attempts, and then went to the Buddha and gave up his body, so that these people should not have the strong demerit of having killed an arhat.
लेकिन उसका भी कोई प्रोसीजर होगा, कुछ होगा कि कौन सा पिछले
नहीं पता चला.
वो पता नहीं.
उन्होंने कहा ना,
भगवान ने वो बताया.
achintya.
Achintya. Some things are achintya. Kala kama vipaka achintya. It's unthinkable. So only the Buddha can tell. Only the Buddha can tell it.
कैसे आया, मतलब लाइट में कैसे आया?
Only the Buddha ने देखा ना. He saw it. That's why he says, I saw eons. ये पहले अपने जीवन देखे इतने, फिर लोगों के देखे किस तरह से मरता है, किस तरह से पीछे जाता है, पीछे. And he said, I saw eons and eons, and I didn't see beginning of ignorance at all. That's how he says that beginning of ignorance is not to be seen. So don't ask when did the ignorance begin and when did this world arise. That's not to be seen. And he's seen some 90 or 900 eons Imagine. And you couldn't find when did it begin. So it's just why think about it. अब हम सोचेंगे तो it's better not to think. So Sankhara Pachya Vijnanam is the first kind of transition from past cause to present result. Now from Vijnana Pachya Namarup Pachya Salayatan Pachya Phassa Pachya Vedana. Now all this is bound to happen. This is unavoidable because there is a straight cause-effect relationship is there. If there is a Vijnana, there will be consciousness is there, body will form. Body is formed, senses will be there. Senses will be there, contact will be there. Contact will be there, then feeling will arise. So this is the present result of that past cause. And from feeling, then comes craving. This is the present cause. If the ignorance is strong, feeling will react with craving. If it is not there, then we can change the course of action. So from feeling, normally craving will arise because ignorance we have kept at the top. So from feeling, craving arises, and from craving, Vedana Pachya Tanha, Tanha Pachya Upadana. Means grasping arises, Upadan Pachya Bhava, that we becoming, and Bhava Pachya Jati. So next life. So this Bhava Pachya Jati could be interpreted as every moment we are reborn, and it could also be interpreted as at the time of death we are getting. Upadan is giving rise to new life. Because we are grasping something, howsoever noble it be, we are grasping something, then it will give rise to new birth. And then when birth comes, then aging and death will also come. And ignorance will increase because the seed of ignorance still lies within it. So this is our normal understanding of Paticca Samutpada. So when we talk of Avidya Pachya Sankhara, we just assume Pachya means this is a causes or this is the result of it. You're not really given it a thought. What does that Pachya mean? Now that we have studied all the Pachyas, we'll have a chance to figure out which Pachya is operating where. Now why are we doing it? You may say, what is the purpose of doing it? So I have put down this. It's not mere intellectual satisfaction. It also shows, next slide 111, how various factors operate in keeping the wheel of suffering rolling. It makes us mindful of the traps which we would otherwise ignore. So it's not a Avidya Pachya Sankhara is not that it is some kind of a one-way relationship which is operating. Like normally we talk of cause-effect relationship in normal day-to-day life. I threw a stone and the glass broke. That's the cause-effect relationship which we identify. But here it is conditionality. I think we have already discussed it enough. 24 links which we said. They are conditionality. If this happens. It's not say A is the cause of this. So I was reading a book on it recently, and he pointed out, today being Sunday, library is closed. He says Sunday is not the cause of closure of library. It is that because there is Sunday, the library is closed. So we have that situation in day-to-day life, but we don't reflect upon it, and therefore can't figure out. We think everything is of the same kind. So we'll start. First, Avidya Pachya Sankhara. So let's 5 minutes meditate, because then I think we'll be in a good state to reflect. Good. So let's start. Kindly open the notes also, because I have given detailed notes on that, so that I don't have to remember. And it helps in understanding, otherwise it becomes difficult to understand. Now, what is avidya? I think we know about it, but still I have written it. It's defined in varieties of ways actually. The primary definition is not knowing the Four Noble Truths. Then there are, in the Abhidhamma, they also said not knowing about the past, not knowing about the future, not knowing about conditionality, not knowing about conditionally arisen states. All this is avidya. And what is the result of that? It results in concealing the truths, and therefore there is confusion. And because of the confusion, the notion of self, notion of doership comes, the notion of karma arises, and once doership arises, the wheel of becoming, suffering will keep on rolling endlessly. Now, what is sankhara? If you remember from Abhidhamma point of view, they are the 50 chetsikas. You remember there are 52 chetsikas, out of which 2 are taken out, sanya and vedana. In the suttas, we talk of 5 khandas, isn't it? Rupa, Vedana, Vijnana, and sanya and sankhara. So Rupa is one, then Vedana, sanya is others, and then we talk of sankhara. So the sankhara is therefore the remaining 50 chetsikas. But here primarily it refers to the volition. So when we say avidya paccaya sankhara, it essentially means avidya causes volitional formations. We have a notion of doership and then we do something. We create a kamma out of it. So, and the kamma can be of various kinds. It could be kushala, it could be akushala, and it also can be abhyakata. I hope you remember, which are ethically neutral. But if you take the positive aspect of it, it is imperturbable. When you are in deep equanimity, when you're not in sense, you're not interacting with the sense domain. So the conditionality is important because when we don't understand conditionality, we always think, yeah, I am seeing, I am hearing, I am being born, I am dying. And then, of course, the moment that issue arises, we will continue to remain in this cycle of birth and death. There's no way that we can get out of it. Then let us see what are the conditions. Now, avidya itself I have put down here in the bracket moha. Avidya itself is one of the chetsikas, if you remember. It is one of the unwholesome chetsikas. So, when we say avidya paccaya sankhara, it means we want to understand how does avidya condition sankharas. So, it conditions formation of merit in some way, demerit in another way, imperturbable in another way. So, I first put the condition for formations of demerit, that is akushala kamma. How avidya can give rise to akushala kamma. Now, you may say, how can avidya give rise to kushala kamma? It sounds funny, but we'll see that also can happen. Now, what are the various paccayas we have studied? I have put down all of them which are relevant here. Avidya is a hetu. Remember hetu? Hetu means it is the root condition. The very first was when we recited the patthana, hetu paccayo arambhana paccayo. So hetu is the very first root, which gives the rooting of the tree. Just as the tree is resting on the roots and it is extremely firm, so avidya is therefore such a strong thing that it acts like a hetu, and therefore everything else will, just as tea has so many branches, so many other mental states will arise because of avidya. So it acts as avidya, as a hetu. It also acts as sahajata. Sahajata meaning arises simultaneously with it. And anya means is a reciprocity. Nisaya means support. Sampayut means associated. Athi means presence, and avigat also means non-disappearance. So when we are doing anything unprofitable, all these conditionalities will operate. So it's not just one conditionality. All of these conditionalities are operating. Of course, we could break them into further details of what are the kind of volitions which are formed. I've just written them down. I don't want to get into all that, too much of a discussion. The issue is that there can be various ways in which it forms. Then at times when we can give importance to ignorance and enjoy it. It will sound funny, but many times we remember our past enjoyments which arose because of ignorance, and then we remember and then make the enjoying them. Past में ये हुआ इतना, I enjoyed so much, I got this. So then it becomes the arambana adhipati. It means arambana means it becomes an object. And ignorance becomes an object. And vattu upanishya means it becomes an object and it has a decisive support. And then in that contemplation itself, we can increase the avidya and increase our sankharas in that process. Then it can also act as Upanishaya. Upanishaya, as you know, is the most strong, one of the stronger one. Like Hetu, it is also a strong conditionality. So one who is confused by ignorance and, for example, unaware of the danger of killing living things and so on, can do anything out of ignorance. He is not aware that killing is bad, so he indulges in professions of that kind, and butchery and killing people and so on. But it also acts as, in the Javana state, if you remember, as Anantara and Samanantara, because in Javana the 7 states, chittas of mind, arise one after another. So when they arise one after another, they are conditioned by Anantara and Samanantara. And of course Upanishaya and Asevan, you remember, we have already seen that, repetitive, because same thing is happening again and again. And by Natti and Vigata, because they are not acting in that sense of being presence and disappearance. So these are the various ways in which the avidya will condition sankhara, which are unwholesome sankharas, unwholesome kamma which result in. Let me read out to you some part of it. Yeah. Ignorance coupled with greed, in the earlier part I am not reading because that gives details of the various consciousnesses which can arise. If, for instance, ignorance coupled with greed induces a man to commit evil deeds such as theft, robbery, killing, stealing, unlawful sexual intercourse, in these cases, therefore, ignorance is a natural decisive support or direct inducement. So, when it is a direct inducement, it is pakat upanishya pachya, which we had studied. If, on the other hand, someone remembers a former state of ignorance combined with, say, sensual enjoyment, then he karmically unwholesome state springs in, such as sensual desire and grief, then it is a arambana upanishya, which I think I have explained. It becomes an object then. How can it condition kushala sankhara? It sounds very funny that avidya can condition kushala sankhara. So, what will be the kushala sankhara? They will be shovana chetsikas, but without amoha. You remember? Amoha was a factor which was array. In the wholesome chitta, there were 19 mental factors. Alobha, adosha, and tatra majjata, and so on. But amoha was not there. So amoha means wisdom was not there. So one can have a wholesome mental state and still wisdom may not be present. So those are the states which can arise where ignorance can condition wholesome states. So what are the typical examples? Of course, one thing which I have pointed out is ignorance cannot be there for sahajata with formation of merit. It cannot arise together. If ignorance is present, then meritorious action will not arise. But it is in the background. It is as a way in the background. In the sense of absence of wisdom. So that is also can be seen as conditioning by ignorance. So it can act as an object condition. How? One reflects on ignorance as the root of misery and then works towards removing it through meditation. Mm-hmm. See? So, but that also becomes a sankhara. Then it can also be a decisive support condition in 2 cases. I've focused morely on sense sphere formation, that is in our domain. I have not put down the conditions for Devaloka and Arupa Loka. I have just removed them because it is too.
So उनकी भी
उनकी भी conditions हैं. उनकी भी conditions हैं. तो हमने कहा जहाँ हम हैं वहीं पे रहें तो ठीक है. उतना ही काफी है हमारे लिए. So I just removed that part from the book. So it is a condition as a decisive support condition in two cases. In one who for the purpose of surmounting ignorance does dana, shila, bhavana, etc. And for the fine material sphere formation in one who arouses fine material jhanas and so on. I'll just give an example, same thing. In future I will not do that. Likewise, in one who does kushala kamma while aspiring to the delight of sense sphere becoming, कि मैं देवलोक में चला जाऊं तो चलो मैत्री का भाव करो, कुछ सेवा करो, कुछ दान दो, देवलोक में जाएंगे. So that becomes a condition, and that may give a birth in devloka, but you are still caught in the cycle of birth and death. So that's how you have ignorance giving rise to a wholesome karma, but nonetheless it is a karma.
But sir, these can also arise when the ignorance is not there.
Yeah.
For example, the first one, when we say that
if amoha is there, then it cannot arise. If panya
wisdom
is
is
there,
there,
then it will not arise. That's why, you remember we had discussed that you may have a wholesome chitta with 2 roots or with 3 roots. Every wholesome chitta will have at least 2 roots, alobha and adosha. But that is less proficient in giving better birth than 3rd root. And only when 3rd root is present, in one of the literature it is mentioned that only when a person is born with 3 roots is it possible for him to enter the stream of Dhamma.
3rd root कौन
What
सा
is
है?
the third root?
Wisdom, panya. So it should have been in the past life, panya should have been there. And
सारे अज्ञान में पैदा होते हैं.
it should have been present in a state, at the time. The person should have all the 3 roots present. Then he can move and enter into the stream or even attain jhana. That commentary says that even attaining jhana is very difficult if the person is born with only 2 roots.
Normally person are born with 2 roots. जो कहते हैं ना पिछले जन्म का संत था कोई तभी इसकी ऐसी पार हुई, तो उसको तीसरा मिला होगा ना,
तीसरा रूट होगा
उसको तभी वो इस लेवल पर आया है कि उसको
ये थोड़ा odd सा है कि person can only be born with 2 roots, तो फिर तो उसका escape route है ही नहीं. अमोह कहीं ना किसी फॉर्म में तो होगा ही.
Then he can work towards developing amoha in this life.
सर अगर ये 2 roots होंगे तो अमोह में work towards कैसे
होगा? He can work toward developing it. He can't enter the stream, but he can work toward developing it and then.
But सब डेवलप करने के लिए भी जो वोल्यूशन आना चाहिए वो अगर तीसरा रूट है नहीं तो वो वोल्यूशन भी नहीं आएगा.
सफरिंग से आएगा ना वोल्यूशन. तो सफरिंग है हमारा तो स्टैंडर्ड टीचर सफरिंग है ना. स्टैंडर्ड टीचर इज सफरिंग. दैट विल मेक अस, जैसे हमने यहाँ कहा ना,
लेकिन जिसका
जस्ट लिसन, व्हेन वन रिफ्लेक्ट्स ऑन इग्नोरेंस एज द रूट ऑफ ऑल मिजरी इन द वर्ल्ड, देन one can work toward removing it through meditation. So then he started working, हटाओ उसको, I should work towards removing it. So he becomes a positive sankhara बना रहा है उसको, and that he is inculcating the volition of panya. He is inculcating panya in him.
लेकिन जिसका अमोह तीसरा साथ में होगा वो शुरू से इस लाइन में चल रहा होगा.
Yeah, he'll be कई लोग होते हैं ना, they come to Dhamma as is our tradition at the age of old age. There are others who come to Dhamma right at the beginning itself. Some people just study and say, "Chalo, let's go." No, people like Ajahn Sumedho or others.
उनका तो कोई ट्रेडिशन भी नहीं था.
उनका कोई ट्रेडिशन ही नहीं था, कोई मतलब ही नहीं था इनका. And I don't know why he chose comparative religions to study. Princeton जाके कोई ऐसी चीज पढ़ता है. And he did MA in Asian studies, and then he said,
Chinese.
Enough हो गया, and he moves out. And he gets the conditions are created for him that he comes in contact with Thailand and he goes there. So obviously it must be past life. Of course, if you believe that astrologer, there's a different story altogether.
Which astrologer sir?
एक astrologer ने उनको बताया था ना कि तुम पिछले जन्म में अजान चा की दादी थे.
अच्छा. ये सर आपको भी बताया उन्होंने?
नहीं, बुक में लिखा हुआ है. उन्होंने भी बताया था. He also mentioned it in one discourse. He mentions it and laughs about it. Because he says, I don't know how I came here and how did I end up with Ajahn Chah of all the people. Then he laughs and says, one astrologer told me that you were his grandmother. And funny,
वैसे ही कहा होगा, क्या पता।
एस्ट्रोलॉजर ऐसे थोड़ा ना कहेगा, झूठ थोड़ा बोलेगा.
So Silesh had one question. He wants to understand again the difference between conditionality versus cause.
Conditionality implies that when we say the basic formula is imasmin sati idam hoti. If this is, this happens. It does not say A causes B. It says if A is existing, then B happens. If A is not existing, B does not happen. That much. So it is only relating two events or two dhammas, so to say. It is relating them. If ignorance is there, avidya happens. But if you reflect deeply, avidya is not directly causing ignorance. Avidya will operate through. How will it operate? I didn't want to create confusion. How will avidya operate? How will avidya give rise to kamma? Only when, because of avidya, we are relating to world, we experience something, then there is phassa, then there is vedana, then we'll react, because of avidya, we'll react to vedana with craving, and then kamma will arise. So avidya is not directly the cause of kamma. Avidya is operating through so many other links. That is the point.
So here, that example that you said, Sunday and the school closed.
Yeah, that's a clear thing.
If the Sunday, the school is closed.
Yeah. When he says, that book was mentioning the difference, that if today is Sunday and the school is closed, so it does not mean that Sunday has closed the school. Sunday is an one event, closed is another, and if this happens. If this is not there, if Sunday is not there, school is not closed. So you have to understand that way. It's not a causal relationship of the kind you find in engineering, that you have a crank and piston and you move the crank, then piston will move. There's no doubt on that issue. So piston is moving because of the crank. About that there is a clear one-to-one cause-effect relationship. Here that kind of relationship is not there. You can't identify it as a cause.
But sir,
so that is a very subtle point of difference between logic of Buddha's teaching and Praticca Samutpada and the other logic, and there are books and books written on that.
सर हमने गोयंका जी के ट्रेडिशन में ये देखा कि वेदना वाला जो लिंक था, दैट इज दी वेदना एंड क्रेविंग वाला, तन्हा वाला जो लिंक था, दैट इज द मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट वन. बट sometimes when I listen to Ajahn Sumedho, I feel the next link is the crucial one. Because Ajahn Sumedho says, the tanhas will arise because it is a sensual word. I think the upadana to the tanha is the...
that also is crucial actually. Because
that happens through ignorance. I think that is where what he is focusing on. The tanhas will arise because of it is a sensual realm. The ignorance makes you attached to it because of the self-view. And you call it yourself.
That also can be, seems very strong argument, certainly. Because tanha is, the example which Abhidhamma gives. Some of the examples are very good, He gives of, pucha kisi ne unse, he has that question, what is the difference between tanha and upadana? He says tanha is like a thief. Example bhi aati hai. A thief sees a thing which he wants to, and he moves his hands towards it. So that is tanha. Then he catches hold of it and holds on to it and runs away with it. Then he's grasped that thing. That is upadana. So that tendency to move towards it is tanha, and to hold on to it and grasp it is upadana. So you can arrest both the tendency and you can also arrest the grasping. Either way, actually. If you take Satipatthana in its wider sense, you have to see even Sairagam va Chittam, Sairagam Chittam Pajanati, isn't it? So even Raga has arisen, Raga is a Tanha, Raga has arisen, you just see it, drops off. Isn't it? So what is being pointed out by Goenka ji and all these literature, the Abhidhamma, is that if one is so mindful of the feelings, then one does not even have tanha. Then you are free slowly and slowly.
That is
And
where I
because
think
tanha is according to the second noble truth, tanha is seen as the cause of suffering. It is not upadana. When Buddha talks about Four Noble Truths, he talks of tanha as the cause of suffering. So it is tanha, upadana is stronger tanha. Then if you have strong tanha, then the chances of leaving it are quite low.
so, but at least the way I understood what Ramsumitra was saying was Upadan is not stronger tanha, it was Upadan is the looking at tanha from a self view. Because tanha can be looked at very objectively as something happening in the mind body complex and you are not attaching to it as mine.
Yeah, it can be seen that way also. It can be seen that way. You see, if one can work at the self view level, that's true. But if you work at the mental action and reaction level, then Vedana Pachya Tanha is the link which can be handled. And of course, the link will be handled only if ignorance is not there, otherwise you can't handle it. So fundamentally it is ignorance rather than anything else. And even Vedana Pachya Tanha will be handled only if there is no self. If you take Vedana personally, then you will not be able to come out of Tanha. So even Vedana Pachya Tanha has to be handled at that. What Ajahn Sumedho I think is pointing out that don't cry if Tanha is created. There is still hope. You can give it up. You don't hold on to it. So it is actually that statement, I see it like Satipatthana statement. Sayaragam va chittam, sayaragam chittam pajanati. So rag aa gaya, theek hai. Okay, let it be. And finished. Sayadosham va chittam, isn't it? So that's a clear method of training. But the Buddha also talks of ditthe mattam bhavishyati. You straight away cut it. Just see. Finished.
वो भी तो वही चीज है ना, you just see and finish it.
नहीं, finish means there's no craving arising. वेदना पच्चय तन्हा नहीं हुआ ना फिर.
नहीं तो जब आप देखोगे जानोगे भी हाँ हो रहा है, चलो ठीक है, सजात पच्चय.
थ्योरी नहीं बताओ आप, अभी मेरे को देख के बताओ. आप देखो और देखो कि किस तरह से उसको फीलिंग जागती है. Whenever we see something, there is immediately feeling and there is immediately liking or disliking होने लगती है. It's so powerful that we immediately get into that. And therefore, the suggestion is, okay, you don't hold on to it and give it up. But if one has to really transcend the whole domain, if one really transcends it, then the craving and this will also not arise. It depends on the mental training. So as a Bhaya Sutta we learn, ditthe mattam bhavishyati. Just see,
Only see.
and just only seeing. Sometimes we also just see. But most of the time when we only see, we ignore it. We are walking down and we see so many things, we ignore them, we don't give attention to them. If you ask somebody on morning walk, सड़क पे कितने पत्थर देखे? No chance. इस तरह का पत्थर था क्या? हो सकता है हो भी, देखा नहीं हुआ, we don't remember because we don't allow it to become an impression on our mind.
वो तो फिर अभ्यास ही आएगा ना, ये जो अविज्ञान है,
दिट्ठे मत्तम भविष्यति बिल्कुल अरंत बन जाएगा ना. वो तो just could cut it at the head. That's such a strong ability of mind that he could observe the seeing and just stop the mental functioning from going further, which needs huge mental training for that purpose. What is being pointed out is that even if tanha is arisen, you can subside it by being observant of it.
So Shailesh needs some clarification between Tanha and Upadan, and he's saying that in Satipatthana I thought Tanha is the desire and we can have good positive desires, so I am confused.
Tanha is, the words ki baat hai, how do you understand? The good positive desire is, you remember what is it? What is the word for it?
Good positive.
Positive desires. Chanda, that is the word for it. Chandadipati, we have read that. Adipati Pachayo. Chandadipati, Viryadipati, Chittadipati and Vimansadipati. So there are 4 Adipatis which determine our life. Chanda is a desire which can be wholesome or unwholesome. So that is Chanda. Tanha is not seen as wholesome. In no case Tanha is seen. So it's a question of choosing the proper word. So chanda is seen as a possibility of a wholesome desire. In fact, all of us are sitting because of chanda, because we have a desire to learn Dhamma and understand Dhamma. And so.
हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं.
But we.
But sir, desire, tanha जो है.
So chanda is therefore sometimes interpreted.
Tanha तो तृष्णा है.
Yeah, chanda is interpreted therefore sometimes as aspiration. अंग्रेजी में शब्द चुनने पड़ते हैं ना कुछ. It is interpreted as aspiration. So aspiration is a good feeling. Tanha is Trishna. It is seen always in the negative light.
But aspiration का मतलब ही तो that can be positive.
Desire also, yeah. Aspiration to one can
positive, negative दोनों हो सकते हैं.
That's right. But उसमें positivity की possibility है. इसमें तो possibility नहीं है.
क्यों उसको शब्द दे दिया aspiration तो इसका मतलब
शब्द की बात नहीं, मतलब है ना उसका. मतलब अलग है ना. सिर्फ शब्द से थोड़ा होगा. वो तो मतलब को डिस्टिंग्विश करने के लिए अलग शब्द दिया है ना. ऐसा थोड़ा ना शब्द दिया है. मतलब अलग है ना. हमारा छंद है कि हम दुख से मुक्ति पाएं, तो उस छंद के होके ही साधना कर रहे हैं, अभ्यास कर रहे हैं, प्रयत्न कर रहे हैं, समझ रहे हैं, इतना एफर्ट कर रहे हैं. इट्स ऑल मोटिवेटेड बाय दैट एस्पिरेशन टू बी फ्री.
उस केस में भी छंद is okay, but if it adds upadan to it, if you add self view to it, then it becomes the problem.
Even chanda has to be given up eventually. It is a place where we start from in the proper direction.
So then I think in Suresh also mentioned that the real problem is upadan, not.
You can say so. You can put it to say
because
taking things personally. Real power is taking things personally.
If chand is a good thing, aspiration, and it has to be eventually given up.
Yeah, eventually even wholesome karma has to be
right. Then when we say that vedana pachya tanha, vedana could also pachya chanda.
No.
Considering these two as chanda is the aspiration and.
No, that's not the implication. The functioning of the mind is such, because this is a question of describing functioning of the mind. It's not a question of what I can do, isn't it? It's not a question of my intervention from the perspective of changing the functioning of the mind. From Vedana, how can I respond? From Vedana I can respond. Vedana will be either pleasant, unpleasant or neutral, isn't it? So I can respond wisely or unwisely to each of them, each of the three possibilities. So the possibility is either Vedana Pachya Tanha or Vedana Pachya Panya. That's a possibility. That I feel Vedana.
Chanda?
Well, Chanda is a different category in itself. Na? Chanda is a different category. Tanha and Panya are very strong. They are very strong mental factors. Chanda is a mental factor which is universal, which is present as a ethically variable factor. So the ethic of Chanda is decided by other mental factors. So if you have Tanha, you can't have Chanda. And the Chanda will become unwholesome Chanda.
That is true.
That is it. So that's how the classification has been done. Obviously this classification could be changed. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि कोई hard and fast classification बना दिया. But this is the way, since we are studying from Theravada Abhidhamma point of view, this is how they understand it. That's what I meant. So this is as far as Kushala Sankhara is concerned. Then you come to for imperturbable Sankhara, that is, it's only next one, 115. It is a condition for imperturbable Sankharas in only one way, that is Upanishya or decisive support. How does it become? It is actually the imperturbable refers to the Sankharas corresponding to the formless meditations. Because there the person is imperturbable. He doesn't get perturbed by the sensory impetus because he is in a formless meditation. So then I have made a note here because the feeling might arise that avidya is the sole factor responsible for formations. And we already discussed that there cannot be single factor causing single result. It's always multiple. So that has been explained here. There are other factors too, other causes of formation such as physical basis, object, coalescent states that are actually existent. Still, ignorance may be understood as the representative cause of formations because of its basic factor as the cause of other causes of formations. So as we saw, because ignorance by itself is not, it is operating through its so many subsets which operate to cause it. But if you write all of them, then the whole thing will become so complex that it will look up a mess of...
We need physical basis definitely, along with ignorance for any birth.
For any birth and for any sankhara to operate. Sankhara will not be created by a mental factor, it will be created by a person. So this is the avidya pachya sankhara. Then we come to sankhara pachya vijnanam. Now we have as I said, 50 kinds of sankharas can be there because Chetana will always be associated with other Chetasikas and they give birth to one of the Vibhag Chittas. So Vijnanam means the consciousness is arising. From volitional formations, consciousness is arising. So in the three life model, this is the one separation from past to present. Sankhara as of the past gives rise to Vijnanam of the present, which is true even in daily life. It is immediate past. There it is past, so-called past life. So the focusing on sense sphere, there are 23 sense sphere chittas, 7 which are unwholesome, 8 which are wholesome, and 8 which are wholesome resultant. They are the ones which in the 3-level model are seen as the rebirth linking consciousnesses. So the method by which it controls is kamma, obviously, and upanishaya, which is it is a decisive support because kamma gives rise to fruit. It is certain that a kamma will bear a fruit. So depending on the nature of formations, it will be the nature and sphere of consciousness, which occurs both at rebirth linking and in the course of an existence also. So simultaneously making that comment on it. Okay.
So Silesh had this question that in the previous slide you had mentioned that in the note section you had mentioned that a cause uses cause that condition. Uses the word cause rather than the condition.
If I say basic factor as the condition of other conditions of formation, I could have used them because I've just taken it from the book as it was written. I didn't. But this cause again is not in the same sense.
It's not
as
Hetu kind of.
Yeah, it's not a cause in the sense of mechanical cause like I gave the example of a crank moving a piston. It's not like that. No, I could have written as the, to write as the condition of other conditions doesn't give a sense of what it is. So probably that's why they use the word cause there. Shabd limited hai, so we have a difficulty. So we say the cause as it is understood in Abhidhamma and the cause as it is understood in common sense, modern scientific sense. So we distinguish between them. Though the word may be the same, we distinguish that causality here and causality there are different. So depending upon the nature of formations will be the nature and sphere of consciousness, which will occur, as I said, at rebirth linking and course of existence. And since we have a lot of interest in rebirth linking, I have given some details of that here in the next slide. What happens, which rebirth linking consciousness will give rise to what kind of life. So U means unwholesome, RL means resultant, which is rootless. So if there is a rootless consciousness, which is actually out of the 7 rootless consciousnesses, the investigating consciousness is the one which has that ability to give a rebirth. But if it is unwholesome, then it will give rebirth in woeful planes in the four Niraya lokas, in hell and animal and other kingdoms. Then out of the 8 wholesome, rootless chittas, only one chitta, that is the investigating chitta with equanimity, has the ability to give rise to wholesome rebirth in a human domain, or since it is only a rootless chitta, there is no roots in it, the person who is born will be born with congenital defects. So this is the statement. So kindly don't ask me why.
So ऐसा ही क्योंकि हमारे अपने tradition में भी there I think there's, I don't know the exact Puran, but there is some Puran which says if you do this you will get a rebirth like this.
There is a sutta. There is a proper sutta, Chura Vivanga Sutta, in which Buddha is asked by Ananda, and for some time he answers it, and then he says, "Bas karo. Yes, this man died, and what will he be born as this? With this karma will be born as this." So when some people are born as beautiful, some people are born as dull, some people are born as ignorant. So he gives relationship with the past karma, immediate past karma. And then he says, enough, we can't keep on going like that. So here it is pointed out that if the chittas are rootless, the being wherever he is born is either in a woeful plane or even in human plane. He has congenital defects, his eye problem, ear problem, leg problem, all kinds of congenital defects which you can think of. It is only when there are 8 wholesome rooted chittas that a person is born in fortunate sensory realms, in human realm or Deva realm. And further differentiation is based on number of roots and the kind of roots, 2 or 3 roots, if you think of that. And it says rebirth linking consciousness would have the same number of roots as the chitta arising just before death. That is just before the chitta. And as I said short while ago, some literature point out that how the roots are important in determining the progress in the path also. So we'll stop here now. Time 8:30. If there are any questions, you can discuss for some time.
तो मुझे अब समझ में आ रहा है कि बुद्धा ने उसको क्यों कहा कि मत आगे मत जाओ, क्योंकि वैसे ही इतना मुश्किल है। वो बुद्धा ने कहा इससे यार समझ में आएगा नहीं तुम्हें।
काफी है।
सर फिजिकल डिसेबिलिटीज तो ठीक है कि पास्ट कर्मास की वजह से होते हैं, लेकिन जो मेंटल डिफाइलमेंट्स होते हैं वो
तो सबके अंदर ही होंगे ना। तो मेंटल डिफाइलमेंट्स हैं तभी तो हम यहाँ बैठे हैं, नहीं तो मुक्त हो गए होते।
तो वो भी हम अपने पास्ट बर्थ से
लेके आते हैं।
टेंडेंसी तो लेके आएंगे,
ग्रो कर रहे हैं ना उन चीजों के।
तो जब भी एक चित्ता, one chitta falls away, another arises, so it carries with it the whole, just as a daughter carries this code of the mother, same way it happens, it keeps on carrying that again. Only thing is the minor ones keep on dropping down. जैसे बताया जाता है ना, संस्कार जो हैं कुछ गहरे होते हैं, कुछ हल्के होते हैं, कुछ बिल्कुल हल्के होते हैं। जो बिल्कुल हल्के हैं वो ड्रॉप हो जाते हैं, बट अदर्स गेट कैरीड ऑन एंड ऑन एंड ऑन। कौन सा संस्कार कब फल देगा, इट्स इम्पॉसिबल टू फिगर आउट।
आज कहवा पिएंगे आप लेंगे कहवा लेंगे।
अच्छा, कौन सा संस्कार जो है वो कम्मा क्रिएट करेगा और
नहीं, संस्कार तो कम्मा है ही
नहीं, मैं कह रहा हूँ कौन सी चीज देगा, कौन सा ड्रॉप ऑफ हो जाएगा वर्सेस कौन सा,
वो तो दैट वी कैन फिगर आउट ना। जो चीजें हमें याद रहती हैं वो तो कम बनी रही हैं। कुछ तो एक याद न रहने का कारण बुढ़ापा भी है, बट थिंग्स व्हिच प्रोड्यूस अ स्ट्रांग इम्प्रिंट ऑन आवर माइंड, देयर डूअरशिप इज इन्वॉल्व्ड।
ऐसा भी है ना कि मेरे पास एक थॉट आया, मैंने आई बिकम अवेयर कि हाँ ये क्वेश्चन थॉट है, मैंने उसी समय I became aware, so it dropped off.
Yeah.
It didn't have the chance to leave another impression on my mind and then sit back in my
During our practice, we are all trying to do that all. That the kammas arise in various forms in mind, in body, and then we try to observe them with equanimity, and they slowly become weaker and weaker, and eventually some drop down, isn't it? कुछ तरह के थॉट्स जो पहले साधना करते थे आते थे, अब वो बिल्कुल नहीं आते, because they have dropped
It's
down.
very evidently seen कि वो
Yeah.
बिल्कुल नहीं आते.
Those things have
आपको
gone,
लगता है
they don't turn up. So those habit patterns, some thought patterns are no longer arise.
तो सिर्फ फाइनली लिबरेट होने के बाद जाते कहाँ हैं?
ये नहीं पता,
मतलब
उसमें भगवान के उदाहरण दे सकता हूँ, आप उसे निकाल लीजिए।
कहाँ फिर मतलब अल्टीमेटली ये
उनका
पूरा
एक बहुत
cycle
बढ़िया
है।
सूत्र है इस सवाल के जवाब में। पहले कई जगह तो मना कर दिया था, एक जगह वो पीछे पड़ा था तो उसको कहा कहीं पे आग जल रही होगी, उन्होंने कहा ये आग जल रही है, कहते हाँ जल रही है। तो ये अब लकड़ियाँ जब समाप्त हो जाती है, कहते जब ये आग बुझ जाती है तो फ्लेम कहाँ जाती है? कहते कोई सवाल हुआ, अब आग बुझ जाएगी तो फ्लेम कहाँ जाएगी? जब लकड़ियों में जान नहीं, लकड़ियाँ सारी खत्म हो गई, आग बुझ गई, फ्लेम खत्म। तो इसी तरह से 5 उपादान खंड थे, उपादान खत्म हो गया, खत्म। Being is finished in that sense. But it doesn't say that it means that it is annihilated.
हाँ exactly मतलब
So there is no, he says there is no answer to that question. So he says, कोई पूछता था ना निब्बाना है, okay, there is an experience of nibbana. Then what happens after nibbana? He says you have transgressed question limits. This is where questions stop. So you don't know anything. Because there is no being actually. If you see it in deep sense, and when you are quiet and peaceful, you can understand that it's quite clear. Because we have that notion, I am a being. So we think कहीं तो जाएंगे. When that notion of beingness is finished, then जाना कहाँ है?
मतलब फिर वो आप उस एनर्जी प्लेन पे
Yeah, you are no longer, there is no being around.
Yeah, then it
there is
is-
only pure consciousness which is operating, and that's it. But that also is not being accepted in that sense.
On this, did you get a reply from Ajahn Sumito on your question that you sent to Ajahn Suko?
नहीं दिया जवाब।
Yeah, no.
अजान अशोक को कई बार काफी दिनों बाद जवाब देते हैं, उन्होंने जवाब भी नहीं दिया।
But you asked reconfirmation question from him
हाँ।
on the consciousness.
I think so. I thought that was the question. याद भी नहीं exactly wording नहीं याद, but I asked him. कितने दिन हो गए जो आप क्वेश्चन?
यहाँ का वाईफाई का पासवर्ड है क्या? वाईफाई है?
हाँ जी,
क्या पासवर्ड
पासवर्ड है 02